All right, we will get started today with our climate change task force discussion. Hopefully, I think we have some new folks with us who may not already be signed up for our climate change task force. So welcome to anyone new who hasn't had a chance to check in with our great team here. I'm going to keep admitting folks as we go along. So I'm going to keep that going a little bit. I did want to, before we get started, however, I would like to start with what's positive. Before we get started on all the work we have to do, let's do a little popcorn here because a lot has happened with the new bill, Biden administration bill. So if you want to share something positive that's happened in the last year related to climate change, let's start there. So anyone want to share anything or had a chance to, for example, look at the Biden bill, the new climate change bill, and have any feelings about where that's taken us? I know this is hard for us because we focus on the problems, but all right, Sally, go for it. Give us something positive.
Yesterday, I was on a Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light call, and they were unpacking the Inflation Reduction Act and talking about all the incentives and rebates that are available for people doing things with energy in all kinds of ways. And that was really a positive for me because I think what we need to do now is to get that message out there because it's things that people can do and it's going to work to their benefit and to the world's benefit. So I was happy about that.
Yay. That's a great point too to add to our list is how to help people know how to maximize those incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Beth.
Yeah.
Hear me? I haven't really dug into it very deeply, but I think it's really positive. The MPCA has some new grants available for to protect against climate change, and therefore small communities. And small communities, are they're putting resources and money towards that. Small communities don't have the financial resources to do those sort of projects. So I see opportunities for solar gardens and more.
Great.
So that's positive news.
That's great. We'll check that out, Beth, and elevate the MPCA grants. Wonderful. Yeah, Ann Haugen.
There's so many environmental organizations now that are working, and we're reading so much about it in the media that I think this is very positive.
Thank you, Ann. There are so many groups working, aren't there? Excellent.
This is Edward. Mine's more of an analogy. We all know the phrase up a creek without a paddle. Right now, I think we have a paddle.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in the creek flowing the wrong way, but
yeah, we've got some paddles. Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Ann Wildenberg.
Well, I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby as well, and this is what one of our chapters in North Dakota, our only chapter there, talked to Senator Kevin Kramer, and he tweeted this, and this was just a few days ago. Met today with the North Dakota chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby to discuss the Growing Climate Solutions Act and support for a carbon border adjustment mechanism. This could be a geopolitical tool for the U.S. to capitalize on our energy successes. We do it better and cleaner than everyone else.
Awesome. Fabulous. That's a good one to share out there.
Yeah, great.
And I know, Gwen, there were some mining successes. We had at least one this year. Anything you can think of in the mining world that we had some successes in the advocacy world around mining?
Well, the Biden administration basically supported what Trump had squashed, which was
A review of a 20-year moratorium on any mining, any copper sulfide mining in the Boundary Waters watershed. And there is also a bill that Betty McCollum has supported to prohibit forever copper, nickel sulfide mining in the watershed. So of course, both of these are being, well, Betty's bill is sitting there waiting to be included in a major bill in the House. And the mining companies are appealing
Mhm.
the Bush administration or Biden administration's move, but
Right.
that is a big plus, because that would essentially end the Twin Metals mine, which is one of the mines that is proposed in the Duluth complex.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's bad news also, because the mining companies have decided to greenwash, surprise, surprise, greenwash their projects. And now we absolutely need these mines to provide the minerals for the batteries, which are necessary to electrify our fleet of cars and trucks. So
Mhm.
you're going to hear that argument. And there's a proposal for a mine in the area of Tamarack, Minnesota, which would contaminate both the Mississippi and the St. Croix. And it is a much richer deposit of copper nickel than we have in further north. So it isn't as though we are winning the battle.
Right. So we have little things. So for those of you who are just jumping in, we decided to start today with what's good, what good news we have.
Going a
Because
little
I think,
slowly.
yeah, but I think it is really, really imperative, I think, to start with this spot, because I think those of us who are active in any issue, we are always looking, we're all aspirational, right? We all want something that we will not see in our lifetimes, to be honest, right? But that is, I am always reminded of, that is where all change lives and begins and continues. When you think about our history as the League and the suffragists, right? When the 72 years it took to move the needle. I think we have to keep this message going forward. We need to take time to celebrate when we do have success, but to realize that activism it's required, it's important, it always makes a difference. We may not see it, but we move on. So we keep doing it. So that's kind of want to set the tone for our August Academy today, because there are many, many things in front of us. And together, when you look at the changes that have happened, they are because of days like today, people getting together and saying, no more, we're going to make a change, either in our personal lives, our local lives, and our national and international lives. So thank you for being here and being part of that change. What we're going to do today, for some of you, I know that actually a lot of you have not been involved in our climate change task force. So we're going to do a little update for you all. And it's always good for all of us to refresh ourselves on where we're at, what our positions are, and with regards to natural resources and the League. But also then we're going to talk about the survey results, when we kind of went out there and talked to people about what they're interested in, and some of our next steps that we're planning on, and getting your input and answering your questions. So lots to cover in this short period of time. If you have questions while I'm sharing my screen, if you can either put them in the chat, or if you can raise your hand formally using the little tool. Just while I'm sharing my screen, I can't see you all, so it's hard to see just hands up. All right, so let's hit the ground running with the good news that is fueling us. I can't live every day unless I think of something good to start it out with. So here we go. All right. We'll walk through our slideshow here. All right, so of course it is September, so thanks for bearing with us and the changes we've had to make. I will say, I am now caring for a mother with advanced Parkinson's in my home, so I've had to make a lot of changes in my life, but I say that as a way of just reminding us all, right, sometimes about the struggles everybody's going through. And thank you for what grace you can provide as we go through this. But it also helps, what kind of reminds us what's important. And so that's where I am. So thank you so much for taking time to meet us in September instead of August. Again, our goal for August Academy is really to provide regular training and networking, both to help, especially helping our league leaders. We have a lot of new leaders every year that come to us and go, what programs should I do? What do I do now? And so we really wanted to have regular trainings that local leagues could count on to help support their work. But we also wanted this annual refresher. Lots of people on the Zoom today have been involved in this work for 50 years, but there's always new things to learn. So hopefully you will find this helpful as well. And obviously the feedback and input from you all is indispensable. We've done everything we do because of league input. So thank you. All right. I wanted to just point out quickly again, and this PowerPoint will be made available to you as well as the recording. So if you want to just sip your coffee and not take a lot of notes, you can come back and know you'll get these links again. But we do have strong positions on natural resources. I did link them here. When you look on our website, we have them under what we do and under our positions. We've recently updated our program for action description because we had 2 new positions, one on firearms safety and firearms gun control, and also on medical aid in dying. And so those have been added now. But when you look down, sorry for the scroll, but I'm gonna, so close your eyes if this, I'm gonna go to page 12 here. But our natural resources page is quite large. And it's, again, when we act on issues that have been studied and approved by our leagues. And in this time, I want to spend a minute talking about this because we get the question about partisanship more and more. People will say, well, you're being partisan. Aren't you being partisan? Remember, being partisan would mean we're supporting a party or supporting candidates. We do not support, endorse any candidates or any parties, but we always have been rich on the issues and program. We can't help what parties choose to put in their platforms. So we feel very bold in using our positions. The fact that they are more used by one party or another is not something we can control. What I will say during this time of voter service season, it's a reminder that we really are still known for our nonpartisanship, the candidate forums, and the work we do on elections. So we do take all everyone who is currently in office, who's running for candidate, is to us a candidate first. And we do extra careful, try to not combine our issues with our candidates. It's tough this time of year, right? Because when we do our forums, we're trying to ask questions that are appropriate along, for any candidate. So it's tough, but sometimes I get pushback because people feel like we're giving up our issues when we're not, because we're not calling out candidates for things they say or things they're doing. There is a feeling that, yes, we want to be strong on the issues, but we don't, when people are candidates, we're not calling out them personally on their issues. We can still stand up for the issues. So I want to make that distinction. This is really hard, especially now with Secretary Simon. Everybody would like to have Secretary Simon come and talk about elections. And we specifically say this is a blackout period. You can have anybody else from the office, but not Secretary Simon. He's a candidate first, to talk about elections. It would be the same here. You can have people talk about resource management or air quality or any of our things, but don't invite candidates to league events to talk about issues until after the election. So I hope people can see, to me, that's a strength and not a weakness. We still can be powerful on the issues, but the candidates themselves are not the only ones who are have something to say about the issues. I will also say, in all of our on our Vote 411 platform, we asked a climate change question of every candidate that had the ability to influence it. And so we did put a climate change in there, and locally you can add climate change questions into the candidate forums. So we can still keep candidate forums, or keep the issue alive in the voter service season. But anyway, as you can see here, then our position is quite large. We have our US position. When we say things here like Minnesota, no additional position, we do still abide by the US position. So we still are always part of the US positions, but Minnesota, as well as local leagues, can add to those positions if they want to. So where we say no additional position doesn't mean we still are part of the US position at all times. So we have a lot of really good positions that allow us to advocate on almost any issue related to climate change in the environment, including the Great Lakes ecosystem. This is one, it's really good to remember. Again, US does not have a position on the Great Lakes, but Minnesota does. So this is an area, and nuclear waste, another one that's come up. Nuclear power has come back. We've noticed that there might be some need for updating of nuclear power. That's something we've talked about. So some of these positions also might be positions that we want to update. So that's another area for all of us to be looking at. Climate change is actually noted as a position from 2019. And so I wanted to show that too, because LWVUS came up with a climate change position and updated that in 2019, and came out with a new toolkit. So there is a lot of information here that we can all use at the state and local levels to do programs, to do our advocacy and our outreach. And it's one of the things we talked about in our planning that I'll get to, that we want to do a better deep dive into connecting with what the US is doing, so we can be more active at the federal level as well. Again, we also are very fortunate to be part of an interleague organization, the Upper Mississippi River Region. And I know Gretchen's on this call, and they are a wonderful group of again, not just Minnesota, but other local leagues who are impacted by the Upper Mississippi region, have wonderful programs. And I really encourage people with your local leagues to go back and look as you're planning and elevate some of these great programs. Almost everything is on Zoom now, and there's a great opportunity to be able to have all of these great programs. This is their main website. They've got a lot of good stuff in there. You can sign up to get their regular newsletter, which we also link to in our all member news. So thanks to UMRR and Kay Slama, our representative to that, and to Gretchen for all her work on that. We also are very much active participants with the Minnesota Environmental Partnership. Again, MEP also has, we talked about all the amazing organizations that are out there. When you go to About Us and you go to member organizations, there's a lot of them, right? A lot of organizations, but it is nice to see the League of Women Voters here. We are an active member and in great company with many organizations who can make great partners for us all in our work. And lastly is our little climate change task force here. We started a website and we now are in need of updating it because we have done a lot of things. So we will be updating this throughout the fall. But we use this website as a placeholder for all the work that we're doing. Our task force members are way outdated. We started, we are over 210 people who have signed up to be part of a regular conversation and information around climate change. So we will be updating that. But again, anyone can, if you're not currently a member, you can subscribe to the Climate Change Task Force list, which just means you get invited to the meetings and you get invited to things like the, filling out our surveys. We also try to link to all the different things that we just linked to. I just showed you here. We track legislation, and we also try to put up other links to organizations that our members have. And lastly, we have many events. There are events that we do or that we help amplify. And whenever we have a recording of that, we also post that online. So again, these are all great, programs that you can continue to elevate in your local leagues and communities or church groups or wherever, of things going on in this big area of climate change. So I'm going to just talk a bit about the accomplishments so far, and then we'll take a quick break and see if you have any questions. But again, in the last sort of year and a half that we've been forming, we now have over 200 plus people on our mailing list. We hold monthly meetings pretty much every month to network and get educated and do planning. And we regularly share this information now in our all member news that go out to all of our 2,200 members. We had a lot of success this year of increasing our lobby and action alerts and signing on to issues related to climate change, largely in partnership with Minnesota Environmental Partnership. We were also part of the climate change report card advocacy, which is a great starting point for us in the beginning of how to start to partner and get working with people. Sorry. Also, we started with, thanks to support for an intern, we had the beginning of a climate change note process to assess the climate impact of bonding and funding bills. So that is something we will continue to look at and grow. There is additional work going on around this, like how do we best assess the impact to the climate? Actually, in the climate, the new climate bill from the Biden administration, there are some things that touch on this as well, of how to look at the impact of bonding bills. So that's kind of exciting. I feel like we're on the cutting edge of this, but that's something we'll do. And then we've recently conducted some planning for where we want to go in year 2. So you'll see that coming up. So before we go any further, are there any questions about everything I've chatted about here? It's a lot. So at any time, just again, like I said, put it in chat or raise your hand. We also, our climate change action challenge, we actually are finally this week, I've said this before, but we've had some staffing setbacks and advances. So things are good. And actually this week, Amy Perna started working full-time now in our office as an associate director, working alongside me. And Sam Strukens, of course, started now this summer to be our civic engagement director. So we're really back on track. And but our 5 groups that received $500 mini grants will be getting that money next week, and we'll start to have them on our calls to learn more about what support they can make. So these are forthcoming, but we did get them selected and announced at our April Council. And so we're looking forward to learning how these groups move forward. So that brings us today to what's next. And we really were excited about when some of us met to look at what can we do along what we would say are all 4 levels of league. Because climate change, of course, is such, like many of our issues, countrywide, worldwide. But we talked about with this year with LWVUS, we really want to have a more effective advocacy product for signing on to national climate issues. What I will say on that front, that there is an additional staff person in the legal and advocacy department, and we've been assigned a new person. So I think that that will help us now, because they also have had a lot going on at national. We also talked about participating and having some interest, and some of you did express interest through the survey. We'll talk about that, which is great, about participating in the climate interest group. Nationally, there is a climate interest group that looks at all kinds of things that are really related to, that come through the national level, but still impact the states. So I think it would be great to have a member from our group join the climate interest group, so we'd have a little more voice there. For the state level, we talked about a few things. One is we have a text service, our Textedly service that we use for election updates. We'd like to look at how to use that service for more timely actions around environmental issues and climate change issues. That's something that it's a resource we pay for, we can use, but we could invite people to sign up for regular text reminders on climate change and be able to be willing to give us their cell phone number so that we can text people when there are action alerts. A lot of you are probably getting those now from your agencies. It's not something the league has done as much of, but it is a resource we have and we can expand on. We also are working to pair our members with legislatures for greater relationship building and more swift action outreach. We made great progress on that in the last 2 years. We had a great list prepared. Of course, we're updating our list now with a spreadsheet of all the leagues and what the districts are. And then after this election, we'll know where all the legislators are. But Sam and I are committed to making sure all 201 legislators coming into the legislature this year have a league partner assigned to them to get to know them, to be in contact with them. We do have leagues in about half of the counties, so we don't have leagues in the other half of the counties. So for us, it is, in addition to the election work we're doing, we see this as really part of our mission right now is to build those bases in those areas where we don't have league members as well. So we will be looking for those of you in the task force who are interested in building relationships with legislators to perhaps take on some who are not in your direct area. People may have cabins or childhood homes in areas where you'd be willing to make a relationship with the legislator. I think we really discovered in the last legislative session that our real impact of the league still is education as the main point of influence. I mean, getting to know the legislators, being able to tell them about things, those things are still really, really important and a role we can play. We also talked again about using our mission on good governance and transparency to advocate more intentionally on issues such as the Line 3 aquifer breach. I bring this one up because this is one, there was another new article recently. Most of you have heard of this, but of course, soon after Enbridge started, we had these breaches right away. And this was actually Kirsty Marone is a reporter I'm working with on another issue with elections. So I've gotten to know her a little bit more. But this is an area where, again, not always is it our legislators, but our state department heads that we, I think, have a right to be asking more questions. This is an issue that's been coming out. It keeps, oh, we're going to do something, and then something else happens. And so this is an area where we feel like we could be a little bit more intentional in reaching out and calling out and advocating for better governance here. Debbie Nelson saying, I'm up outside of Voyagers. Yeah, so people are feeling this big time here. So we also talked about strengthening our partnership with MEP and possibly starting a new MEP cluster. So MEP does a great job of pulling together people who are interested in specific areas related to the environment and climate change, but they don't have a cluster right now on waste and waste management and zero waste. We have a couple of our fabulous league leaders, Gretchen Sable and Lynn Marcus, so we think are both on here today, people who have great experience working within pollution control and waste control. And we really think that this is an area where we could provide some leadership. So we're looking at that. And then also we'd like to sponsor more regular quarterly educational forums that people can put in their calendar and count on for the year. And so we did in our survey, we looked at who was interested in which issues and topics, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. So So we also have we have US, we have state, but we also have our local LWVs, right? And a lot of our local leagues are doing some great things. So we really do want to help those support the local leagues, especially in things like the Green Step program, and helping helping our local leagues make a more formal relationship with their cities on climate change. So the 5 local leagues, for example, that got the climate change grant are all doing those types of things. And there are lots of, I've talked before about our league, my local league, which is Woodbury Cottage Grove area, where it was too political to say climate change. So instead we have environmental stewardship, which is just fine with me, whatever we call it. But we do have an environmental stewardship group that is meeting now, but is accomplishing the same thing, which is pushing the city forward to look at ways that we can make composting and other types of things. So the idea is to take on one thing is something that really can still make a difference. And then lastly, LWV members themselves, as individuals, we can all still do like as individuals in elections, we can all still vote. We still have our role to play, but we can all still make individual actions. But we talked about trying to make this a little more motivational. Can we measure our impact? Could we do some barometers or thermometers that people could make some significant changes by doing simple things like composting, or no longer using plastic bottles, and measure that impact? Doing some of those challenges we think might be really a great role for this group to motivate people and to measure the impact we're making. So we're excited about giving a little more focus and then hopefully positioning all of you into some of these areas so that in our meetings, we could do some more regular reporting, what's happening at the US, the state level, the local level, and the individual level, and give a little more to that. So to give us a little more shape to our plan, we also did a survey, and I think we had about 35 people that responded to the survey. So these are the survey results. So again, we found that of the people we invited to participate in the survey, 15 hadn't yet been active members. So it was great they participated in the survey. Hopefully they'll get more involved. People are also involved in other things that are going on, which is great. So good news is we still have new people that we can bring forward. Other climate initiatives that, sorry, my little cursor is just, come on, stay there. Here we go. Other climate initiatives the Climate Change Task Force members participate in, lots of things, right? Again, going back to the comment someone made that we do have lots of great things going on. But when I saw this list, it also made me think that it would be really great to invite one of these organizations to talk for 5 or 10 minutes at every meeting. We certainly have more than a dozen groups here, but I think all of these groups, if we've got these relationships, I'd love to hear what, the climate action team of the Unitarian Universal Congregation of Duluth is doing. That would be really interesting, right? So I think what we could do from these results is build more interaction with some of the groups that are working directly on climate change, which might give us some ideas, but also a better partnership with those groups when advocacy is needed. What role would you like to play? So then we get down to the brass tacks of what we want to do here today, as well as where can we all plug in. Advocating for local changes is, I think, still a big piece, and it's really appropriate. What I will say is I know that there's a lot of us that feel that, when you're watching, ice shelves melt in Greenland. It's just like, what is my plastic bag ban gonna do for these? But the point is that, we can agonize or organize, right? And part of organizing is that starting with ourselves and the local action we can do. These things they matter really, I would say, in threefold. One is they matter because they do make an impact. The less let's just take composting. Composting is, becoming more popular. It's a bigger issue. We didn't, the reality of methane and what the contributions are to, waste that is not disposed of correctly is a huge contributor to climate change, as we're learning that we can all have a direct impact in, and that is easy to do relatively, right? And number one, it also benefits whoever's doing it. You can use compost to better your gardens and better your lawns or whatever it is. But three, it also is ongoing educational work. So when we take individual actions, we're also learning, and we can share those with others. So the advocating for local changes, I think, is just a really strong place for us as the league to continue to inspire. And part of that for me is saying, I would love to work with some funders to see about doing more of the kind of pass-through grants we do to help local leagues to better implement changes at their local levels. So this is really good news to get this survey information. We also talked about monitoring and discussing personal actions. We could build this into our regular meetings for people to share, like we shared today. We started the meeting with what good has happened, because we need to remember that things are happening because of our action. And I would like to build that into the work we're doing. The other takeaways, again, just as we're saying, I think if we can help our local leagues better connect with the environmental groups in their areas, that is a huge step forward. So many of you obviously are doing that well, but when we look across our leagues, there's lots of local leagues that haven't really taken that step. So we think we can help more local leagues partner with the environmental groups in their area, which again helps not just the climate change work, but then it helps us to be more partnered with them for all of our other advocacy and election work. I will say that I just want to add one quick plug on how all of that works is that during redistricting, we did a lot of mapping support for a lot of organizations. One was COPAL, which is a Latinx organization working on justice and advocacy issues within our Latino community. And since then, we now ask them to be a partner with Vote 411 because it's a fully bilingual resource. So they're now a partner on our Vote 411 site, and on their website, they still have their voter outreach information that speaks to their population, but then they link to our Vote 411 because it's in Spanish. So, but I say that to say it's the ideal partnership where our organizations who are working in climate change are still doing what they do, but they can use a resource that we have, and we need to, I think, continue to try to do that. As the league, we still are looking at good governance and voting rights and all those things, but all these partnerships with climate change organizations can also help us do that. All of these partners could be elevating our Vote 411 candidate guide, for example, so that we can get more candidates out there telling their stories and helping voters make decisions. So partnerships is still a huge piece of the work we hope to do. What topics would you like to discuss? So these were the things. I was very interesting to see how things came through. The top winners, or so to speak, were still zero waste. What about it? I think it's a great topic, again, because we can make difference. And there's probably a lot of mistakes a lot of us are making. You know, how many of us are throwing things, electronic recycling, things like that, that are going, our food waste that are contributing. Regenerative agriculture. Ag is still important in Minnesota. What does this mean? Where does ag fit in? Nuclear energy was a big one. It didn't rise to the top as much as these others, but it is a big issue we saw last year where our position even on nuclear energy may need to be updated. And there are some great ideas of how to, how do we work with this, with nuclear energy now? Where does it sit in our toolkit related to climate change? So this was a great little takeaway of what some of the issues that we could include in regular programming. So anyway, we've learned a lot. We have some, I think, legitimate next steps. Again, the idea is, and I do have, for the people who completed the survey, we do have people who said, yes, I'd be willing to be part of the US. Yes, I'd be willing to do this. Most people said yes to something. So Sam and I will be able to follow up with the folks on the survey and help plug them in. And we encourage all of you to think about where you want to plug in to that. You can certainly do that by emailing me or Sam at any time, but certainly logging on to our climate change task force meetings and getting plugged in that way. So I'd like to see, does anyone have any overall questions or thoughts from all of this information? Or successes in your own local leagues, things you want to share with each other. I know that as we get into the fall and we get through voter service, I would still encourage all of you who have local candidate forums to look at how you can integrate different questions related to climate change. That's another area where we as league members can participate. So, Gwen.
I wonder where we would be able to find that list of things that you had at the end with the results of the survey. I was interested in the all of the subjects from pipeline update, zero waste, regenerative ag, and I noticed lead was mentioned by only 4 people, but that's something that local leagues could check with their cities and see how many of their water pipes are still bringing lead tinted water into their homes. And we've worked at that at the legislature, but that would be one would assume local cities would have specifics on the water pipes in their community. But anyway, where do we get? Will we be able to get the survey results, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
We can give you the raw results. We can certainly send out the raw results free from the people identifying information, but not a problem. And I do think, though, your point, Gwen, and a lot of what we were trying to say about the individual stuff too, is that doing little things, I don't know, say contests, but little motivational things. I think that's a really fun thing, right? Like we could say this month, okay, everyone go ask your city about, find this out, report back. There's some really fun, innovative things I think we can do. And that's sort of our goal for those monthly meetings now that we've had a chance to really do a lot of good networking. We'll still keep that, but try to add a little more structure and a little more impact building to the work we're doing. Fern.
Yes. So what my question is that, do you have a sample question already to go on climate change that we could just add to our state rep or state Senate candidate meetings that are coming up?
We do have one for Vote 411, and I don't remember what it is offhand, but I can certainly get that to you. It's not one of our hot button issues. We have put out direct guidance on other hot button issues. And we do have questions for the candidate forum, our candidate for our Vote 411 guide, but I can share that. And I don't know, Sam, if you're able to fish that out before we end, you can put what we asked them was still fairly broad, but requires some specifics. So a lot of that is, the challenge there is crafting those good questions is certainly a gift. Yeah. All right, Edward.
That was my question as well. We fumbled with some questions that we thought were adequate, but if you've got some that have been proven successful, I'd love to get that by email.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me throw that out to Paul Huffman on our board, who's been working at candidate forums, and see if we can't come up with some more related to climate change that would be good for you all to use. Thanks. I'm glad you guys brought that up. Yeah, Lee.
the league has been assigned, I think, between 15 and 20 seats at COP27, and they have not been taken by league members, so they're available. So if folks are interested in going, it's 2 weeks in middle of November. You only can go for 1 week at a time. The badges are week specific, but Robin Chokmakian is the league person handling this. And if people are interested, if they let me know, I will be glad to give you Robin's email, and people can go. This is, I can tell you as a person who's attended COP, and I've agreed to go to 27, it's very tough to get permission to attend. So this is a big deal for the league, in my opinion.
So first you have to tell us what COP is.
Oh, it's the Council of the Parties. It's the sequel to the Paris Climate Accords. And COP27 means it's the 27th Council of the Parties. Every year they have another one. This one, it will be in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, a resort about an hour south of Cairo. So the biggest obstacle to going after getting the invitation is the cost. It is expensive, but it's fabulous. There will be over 200 countries there, and I suspect this one is going to be about, frankly, naming and shaming people who have failed to live up to their commitments or have made inadequate commitments and what can be done about it. So I think it's fascinating for a global perspective.
Interesting. I think, Lee, it would be interesting to, if you had a little blurb about what COP is and how people can connect with that we could put into our all member news next week. I'd love to do that.
Okay, let me contact Robin. I'm nervous that I'm kibitzing on something, but I will contact her and see if she would be willing to do that. I think it's a terrific idea. I think I'm the only person from Minnesota going. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
So you're going to Egypt?
Yes.
Wow. So you will have to be a featured speaker when we get back, when you get back.
Well, there are a lot of people going, and there are other people that may have better access and so forth. So I'm not promoting myself, but I certainly would like to share whatever I learn.
Well, keep us posted. That would be great. Very exciting. There's so much happening. And also Gwen put into the chat too, like asking your local climate change activists, people like Sierra Club, et cetera, about candidate forum questions for your local leaders too. Great stuff, everybody. A lot of information. I think the main takeaway is we can all not drink from a plastic bottle today and make a difference, right? We can all find something to compost in our backyard. We can all think about contacting somebody at our city and seeing where we're at in Green Step cities. And so we will have definitive actions, and it is certainly our goal with the leadership of our climate change task force to try to help all of you as individuals, local league members, to be more successful in your interests and living those out. So thanks for staying engaged, for being here today, for sharing the word with others to get signed up on the task force so that we can keep the information flowing. We look forward to planning some really great educational seminars. We are also committed that every education thing we do connects to an action afterwards. So that is something we really want to put in place when people come and see something. What can they do next? So that's the challenge we're putting on ourselves here at the state office, is to try to always make sure our education is tied to our advocacy. Yeah, Edward?
I just wanted to make sure that those who are new and may not have gotten the email you forwarded out about our climate change and health event next Thursday.
Yes, and that is Thursday the
14th.
14th, right. And so I think we have that in all member news, but would you make sure to send it again to me, Edward, so we remember to put it in? And we've been trying, there's a lot of lot of good education coming up in September, climate change as well as our elections. So we'll get that out there. Thank you. All right. Well, listen, it is great to see all of you. Thank you again for your hard work and advocacy. And we look forward to kind of kicking out an updated fall plan for our meetings as we move forward with the great input we've received. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michelle.
You bet. Thank you all.